Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling something we've done before, the Untold Tales box. Now the reason that we are doing this again is because the previous format was not optimal for YouTube or just being able to follow along easily. So I eventually got my hands on another one of these boxes, so we're going to do it in the better format so I can better show you how to do Linh Ly Storyteller, because that was a big one and it was a relatively popular build, so let's just do this better, shall we? Okay, box contains 3 models. You have Damian Ravencroft, Unbound, Miya Murakami, and Linh Ly Storyteller. I believe Miya is now only 10 Thunders in 4th edition. Don't quote me on that. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. Renders on the back. Magical boy with the pecs out. Miya just being a nice old lady, and Linh Ly with that monstrous paper arm thing. Alright, now let's look at the sprues. Not looking too simple. Damian having about 7-8 pieces, and then, I guess I could count, looks like 7. 7 pieces, and then Linh Ly with quite a few, and Miya also respectable 7 pieces, but don't think nearly as fancy. So we'll do them in box order, starting with Damian, then Miya, and then finish with Linh Ly. Alright, so let's look at Damian's instructions and then go over his assembly order. Okay, for Damian we are going to do my normal assembly order as opposed to what it was in the previous video. I don't think it matters a whole ton. I'm going to go ahead and grab C4 and then add the sword to it, C6, followed by C5, which is sort of a connecting bit between it and C2, and we'll finish with C2, which will thus complete the basing bit. Then we'll cut out the body C1, do the head C3, and then the arm C7, and once the body is done, we'll just plug them into the basing bit. Alright, so grab C4 and C6 first. There we go, C4, C6 is going to fit right in there. The same looks good. Next is going to be C5. It is going to fit right along here with the sort of looks like an upside down cape. More or less it's just going to fit right there like that. Okay, so let's add them together. Pretty good. So next step is going to be C2, which is going to cover up this entire back part of the basing. Right. There is our seam. And I could probably stand to close this guy a little bit, which I'll go ahead and do. And then we're going to go ahead and clip out C1 and C3, the body and head of our dear Damian. C1, and we'll add C3 right up here. There we go, check and make sure our seam is good and there's no gap behind his neck either. Alright, let's do C7, the left arm. Okay, there's his arm in. That was real weird to get in there correctly, but you just need to try and make it match the render, and then also check and make sure your seams aren't too wide, as it will. I think the best way I got it in there was making sure I put pressure onto the bottom of the arm. That sort of slid it into place for me. Do what works for you. But anyways, let's add his feet to our basing bit. Right there and in there. Sorry, right there. You can kind of see the bottom of his foot right there. There we go. There's a bit of a gap issue right there, but make sure he's tilted forward and it should be able to fill it in fairly well. So just make sure you're putting pressure on the forward part of the feet instead of pushing them backwards. But he is all done. Let's put him on a base. Damian Ravencroft Unbound is done. Hardest part for him was really, I think the left arm was the awkward one for me, just because it just doesn't seem to want to go in right. but like getting his feet set in place on the magical effect wasn't terribly easy either. Yeah, and getting that sort of part of his cloak. I think that's part of his cape, cloak, whatever he's wearing from his first version that is now like cast off to the ground. That's halfway buried inside the magical effect. That was a little weird, getting that to fit with the rest of the magical effect. But anyways, that's Damian. Let's move on. All right, it's been a week. Accidentally, kind of forgot about this. Apologize. But anyways, let's go ahead and work on Miya Murakami. I'm holding it incorrectly. There's the name. And I also apologize. My youngest is in the basement with me, so you'll be hearing sounds of her playing. Anyways, we're going to combine the two halves of the body first, D6 and D5, followed by the head, D7, and then we'll tug towards the back and put these scroll cases, I think, D2. Then we can do the left arm, D4, the right arm, D3, and finish with the right hand and book, D1. This is the same order I did in the original video. So let's look at our instructions and then grab these two bits. Here is D6, add D5 on top. Okay. Seam looks good. Bottom looks a little strange, but I think these are just to give you plenty of purchase for gluing her to a base or your terrain or whatever. The basing stuff. Anyways, let's add the head D7 now. Good God, that fits in there so nicely. Has a nice lip, so it fills in the entire space, and it's not a tiny neck. Love it. All right, D2, our scroll cases. It's going to be on this space right here with obviously the open-ended part sticking up. All right, thanks to that bar that sort of went across that connection point, it fits in. It's pretty hard to actually screw it up. As long as you get the seam closed, you know it's in correctly. Okay, let's grab a D4. I think that's D4. Yep, D4, left arm. Put it right there. Okay, again, a very solid connection. Going to be hard to mess up. Loving this model. D3 is going to be a right arm. It's going to fit over that entire space. Okay. Arm is in. Now let's do our last bits. D1, the hand and book. Glue it here. The left hand will go in between the left side of the book and the sort of magic effect coming off of it. Okay. That's in, but that is a relatively small connection point, easily the hardest part of this assembly. So what I did is, I didn't see any other connection point, but it looks like the book is touching the sleeve on our left hand, so I went ahead and glued it to that too, just to give it a little bit more stability. But this looks great. You could possibly also glue the magic effect to her hand if it is touching her hand. I kind of don't want it to, so I'm going to nudge that a little bit. But anyway, she's done. Let's put her on a base. Miya Murakami is done. Simpler than Damian. Only hard part for her was that book and that small connection point on her wrist, but other than that, quite a simple mini. I enjoyed putting her together. I'm stalling. I don't want to do it. Let's do Linh Ly. Okay, the big scary one. Let's go over our new assembly order. It'll be slightly different than the last time. We are still going to go ahead and grab the body, B14, as well as this skirt, A17, and then both of the legs, B13 and A16. After that, we're going to go ahead and do this scroll that's on her hip, B4, followed by her left arm, B11. Then we're going to go ahead and we'll attach her to the base at that point. And I'm actually going to do her head last because that is not the strongest connection point, and it'll be fine being last. It'll be just fine. But then we are going to grab the book, B2, and add the sort of bookmark thing, B10. And then we're going to add her right arm, B3, to her body. And after that, attach the book to her arm and her hip. Thigh, hip, something like that. Once that's attached, we're going to grab B6 and combine it with B12. Then we're going to combine that to B9. Then we'll attach that entire thing to her back heel as well as this paper effect on the book. And then once all of that is done, we can combine the big pieces of the claw, B5, B1, and B8. Attach that to the base and the paper trail, and then we'll finally do her head, B7 and B15, combine those together, and then plop it on her neck. Alright, that was a long one. Let's look at our instructions, and then get started with B14 and A17. B14, we're going to flip it over, and then add A17, let's the camera focus, right along there underneath this pouch she has on her lower back. There we go. This seam right here should be tight. This one does have that weird looking notch, but that is part of the scrolls connection point, so don't mind that right there. Okay, so next we'll do the right leg, B13, which is going to squish right in here and glue to both sides of that bit. Might need a little bit of wedging to get it fit in there. Come on, focus. There is the leg installed. Looks good. So we can look down there. Now A16, the left leg. Gonna do the same thing over here. Okay, that's a good seam. That hole right there is necessary, and in fact that's where we're going to put our next bit. So let's just check up this way for no good reason. Okay, this is going to be the scrolls, specifically, well, I guess there's only one bit that is scrolls, that's B4. B4 right here. We are seeing it upright. The slightly bendier scroll is going to be on the bottom, and we're looking at it from the side. This is not the connection point. This is just, I guess, twine or something holding the scrolls. You can see our connection point right there. That is going to entirely cover up that hole on her side. So I think that is a good enough guide. You will just move it around until you've got really good seams. Seam is fine. Okay, B11, our left arm, just going to fit right in the shoulder socket. Okay, the arm is good. Now we're actually going to attach her to a base. I recommend this right foot being right on the center point of the 40 mil. Okay. That should be good. Now let's combine our two parts of the book, B2 and the bookmark B10. Okay, here's our book, but our bookmark is going to attach back here. You see this little notch that I accidentally glued because I forgot that I need to actually record this. Bookmark will just come up over the top of the book. There we go. Okay, we're going to attach her right arm now because we want that connection to be soft before we attach the book to her. So her right arm is B3, and it's going to go right there. Okay, there is our right arm. That's about the angle we need. She is definitely standing not perpendicular to the book. Anyways, our book is going to attach in two spots, one on her hand, the fingies, and to this little notch right here. That is going to correspond to, well, first up the fingers, very obvious, thumb, two fingers. So that's where those are going to attach. The notch is going to attach right along here on this specific page. It's going to be awkward. You're probably going to need to hold it there for a bit before it kind of solidifies, but that's how it's going to go. So let me just do that right now. Boom. Okay. You can see that it's attached right down there, and it's attached at the fingers. And something I did notice, I'm surprised I never noticed it till now, the scroll actually has its own connection point right on the edge there that will connect to this piece of paper. So those are these two connection points are your most important one, because that's really going to make sure that it is set up as best as possible for the rest of the bits. We want to get those nice and solid to make sure that they're in the right spot, and then guide the hand into the spots for the fingers. The hand doesn't really matter a whole ton. It doesn't even have to actually be on those spots. It's not that big of a deal. So again, right along here and on top of the scroll are your most important connection points. Make sure those are nice and solid. But now we are going to start combining ourselves some paper. Reminder, next steps, we're going to grab B6 and connect it to B12. Okay, this is B6, and you notice the paint I've put on it, and that is because in the original video I don't think I explained too terribly well how they connect, and I want to be a little bit more obvious how they do in fact connect. So each of these colors has a corresponding one on the other bit, and that is how they are going to go together, although I don't know if the paint is going to mess up my glue. I'll still give it a shot, actually. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. Let's make sure that it is nice and together. Check our seams. Seam looks good, and it is in a vaguely U shape. All right. Okay, next up is our last bit of weird paper, B9, which will connect right there, and the part that it connects to is gonna be, let's see, we've got B9 right here, and you can barely make out the connection point right there. Let's do that. Okay, there is our connection and our shape. Let's look at it on this side. Looks pretty good. I would let that cure really solidly, because the next step is going to be weird and awkward. Okay, we are going to connect this to 2 spots on her. One is going to be the back of her left ankle. That is going to be this little pill shape right here. As you can kind of see, she does have that pill connection point right there. Now that's not going to be perpendicular, it's going to be more going in this direction, just about. And then the other spot is going to be underneath our paper coming off the book. You can see that right there. And that is going to connect to this tip. You can kind of see just a little bit of a connection point, but just getting it to touch that piece is really the goal. This is very complicated and a pain in the butt, so getting it close is what we're really just hoping to achieve, not perfection. So let's glue both of those onto her now, and that's what I ended up with. You notice that there's a nice little pocket for the scroll, but her back heel ended up being a little bit messier than I normally want. And I had to actually take this bit off because I accidentally pushed too hard on it and it split. So I'm going to go ahead and add it now. But I actually suggest that maybe we hold off on combining those 2 pieces until after this whole thing is done, because there's just so much fiddling. So I'm going to go add that now. All right, there we go. So last little bit is the big old claw. I realize my camera's not nearly as centered as I thought it was, but that's still going to be one of the simplest parts. So we'll go ahead and I don't remember what order I said. We'll grab B1 and then add B5 and finish with B8, and then we'll combine that to our paper trail. Okay, got B1. Now let's do B5. It's going to connect all the way down this way. Okay. Now B8, thumb and forefinger. Okay, that's good. So our connection point for this is actually pretty small. It's just right there, and that will go on the end of this guy right underneath that. I would probably also put some super glue on it and glue it to the base as well, just to make sure it's nice and solid. But the hand will kind of engulf the book, so sort of slide it on like that before you get it attached to the bit. It's just going to be a little weird, so I recommend super glue for once. But I'm going to attach that now. Okay. Not the best connection, but considering the detail of this thing, I call it pretty darn good. It does not connect to the book, as far as I can tell. However, if it ends up touching the book, definitely go to the book. So it's even more solid. I realize she doesn't have a head. Let's do the head real quick and call her done. So, her hair, B15. We're going to grab that and slap the face on it, B7, and then plop it onto her head. Make sure not to snip off part of her collar. So, do it underneath this little bump, not on top of it. Okay, we're looking at it upright. It just seems kind of weird, but this lip ledge is just the left side of her face. So we'll just paste the face on now. Okay. Well, as far as that part of her neck that we didn't snip off, that is effectively half of the collar of her shirt. The other half is still attached to the body. So as you can kind of see, maybe, if I can get the camera to look at it, this is where the head's going to attach, as well as on top of the collar. It's a real small, it's a pretty small connection point anyway, so that's why I had you do it last, because any sort of pressure on the head is going to knock it out of place. But she's done! Let's go to our review. Linh Ly, Storyteller, is done. Very difficult model, one of the most difficult models from the 3rd edition. But we got it done. Obviously, the hard parts are really just all that entire paper trail thing going around her, plus the book as well. All of it pretty hard, and without a proper order, you're just going to have a really, really rough time. And even if you did get the order right, still not going to have the easiest of times. So best of luck with that. Hope I gave you some pretty good instructions. Hope they're better than the last one. So let's look at the whole box now. The Untold Tales box is done, containing Ravencroft Unbound. Oh goodness, I completely forgot her name. There's the box. Right, Miya Murakami. And then Linh Ly, Storyteller. Very difficult box. 2 of the 3 models having some pain, and Linh Ly, Storyteller, having enough difficulty for an entire core box from the 2nd edition. Ugh. Okay, yeah, now Linh Ly takes the cake as far as difficulty, although Damian had his own issues, and then Miya was actually quite simple. So, yeah, put all of your time and effort into Linh Ly. It's a freaking gorgeous sculpt, but it's going to be a lot of effort. So, I've been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.